Tents of aid. That's how a UN spokesman has described the US and Israeli-backed food distribution operation in Gaza. The comments coming as aid centres in Gaza are closed today, with growing calls for an independent investigation into the killings of dozens of people. Backed food distribution operation in Gaza. The comments coming as aid centres in Gaza are closed today, with growing calls for an independent investigation. Said it was closing its sites for update, organisation and efficiency improvements works. The group had been operating 3 aid centres, with a 4th yet to open, concentrated in the south of the Strip. Rescue workers say at least 12 Palestinians have been killed and several others injured in an Israeli airstrike on a school in Khan Yunis. Eyewitnesses reporting that an Israeli drone struck.
Yeah, they're murdering people that they have displaced over and over again that are desperate for a crumb of food. It's expansionist propaganda for Turkey. Central Asian countries don't share the same ambitions as Turkey. What? Okay, but it doesn't matter because the fucking half of those countries are dictatorships, and the dictatorship likes the weapons and training that they get and correspondence that they get from the Turkish government. It's not about the population's interests or the population's view of the world. It has everything. It's like the same with the Gulf nations, okay? You listen to the leadership of Gulf nations; they are fucking firmly invested in normalizing relations with Israel, but the Gulf nation populations are not. Same with even Turkey.
Two tents which were housing dozens of displaced people, including women and children. The Civil Defence Agency said rescue workers had recovered the bodies of 2 children. According to the UN, the majority of Gazans facing catastrophic malnutrition are actually in the north of the territory. That's above the Netzarim corridor, a strip occupied by Israeli forces. The GHF has not set up a centre north of the strip. This Palestinian family said they feared travelling south to get aid.
What will the children eat? How are they going to stay alive without this food? My daughter died of malnutrition. We were told to come take food from the soup kitchen, and now the food is gone.
This aid, for me as well as many others, is considered a glimpse of hope. But unfortunately, in light of the lines of humiliation and insult the people are facing in the south, in light of the mass crowding, in light of the daily killings of people who go to get aid, the unjust distribution of this aid, and the lack of enough aid for people, I did not even think about going to get it.
The president of the International Committee of the Red Cross has told the BBC the situation in Gaza has become worse than hell on earth. She's been speaking to our international editor, Jeremy Bowen.
You were in Gaza earlier this month, and in April you made some remarks, and among those you said that Gaza was hell on earth. Has anything changed?
It has become worse. Humanity is failing in Gaza. It is failing. We cannot continue to watch what is happening.
The U.S. appears to have backed a plan by the Syrian government to assimilate thousands of foreign rebel fighters into the Syrian National Army. Reported on Monday, an estimated 3,500 foreign fighters, mainly Uyghurs from China and Central Asia, would join a new unit called the 84th Syrian Army Division, also comprised of Syrians. 3 Syrian defense officials told Reuters. Yeah, they're bringing the Turkish-backed troops under the banner of the Syrian army. All of the I wouldn't say that they're ISIS style. They're not ISIS directly, but they're ISIS style troops. And many of them are incredibly radical. There are numerous different groups that are similar to ISIS in their ambitions, in their fundamentalist principles, even if they're not ISIS, or even if at times they have fought against ISIS. Like HTS is another great example of this, obviously. Almost all of them are funded by either directly or indirectly by way of NATO and Turkey by the United States of America.
it's surpassing any acceptable legal, moral, and humane standard.
I don't think I would describe East Turkestan fighters as ISIS, probably more like the Taliban. Okay, sure. Okay, like the Taliban. I'm saying that they're incredibly fundamentalist, incredibly violent, engage in beheadings, things of that nature, things that you would associate with ISIS. That's why I'm saying they're like ISIS style.
Standard. The level of destruction, the level of suffering.
Also, ISIS and the Taliban are directly comparable as well. like ISIS and the Taliban are also directly comparable. What are we talking about? ISIS is basically the new Taliban meta. How the fuck did the Taliban come to power? What happened with the Taliban? Okay, the Mujahideen were also funded and were offered tremendous logistical support by the American State Department. No, they are not. One is designated by the U.S. and the other isn't anymore. Okay, dude, that's why I said in the past, okay?
But more importantly, the fact that we are watching a people being entirely stripped of its human dignity should really shock our collective conscience.
Israel, of course, says it's acting in self-defense.
Every state has a right to defend itself. And every mother has a right to see her children return. There's no excuse for hostage taking. There is no excuse for depriving children from their access to food, health, and security. There are rules in the conduct of hostilities that every party to every conflict has to respect.
So you are talking, though, let's be clear about this, about the consequences of Israel's offensive.
It's the consequence, as far as I'm concerned, of the whole world watching a type of warfare that shows utmost disrespect for civilians, that deprives civilians of their dignity entirely. Today we are in it. Today we can reverse it. We can save lives today. That's why it's important to act now. State leaders are under an obligation to act. I'm calling on them to do something and to do more and to do what they can, because it will reverberate. It will haunt them. It will reach their doorsteps.
Really powerful and passionate interview that Jeremy conducted there with the president of the International Red Cross. He joined me from Geneva.
Yeah, whenever people say it's a war and not a genocide, it blows my mind because it's like, it's a war against children, okay? Half the population is fucking children, okay? Half the population of the Gaza Strip is under the age of 18. What are you talking about? That is not a war. You can't say, I'm going to war with toddlers, okay? I'm going to war with toddlers that I have held captive in an open-air prison that I have shut off all access points into. And
Geneva to reflect on the conversation.
I felt she spoke with a great deal of moral clarity and authority, not just backed up by the weight of the organization that she heads. The International Red Cross has been helping alleviating the suffering of civilians and victims of war for more than 150 years. I think it's because she would absolutely say they're not taking sides, that they are a neutral organization. That's how they operate. But what they are seeing, that's what she was saying to me, that what they were seeing is an affront to the conscience of the world. She said that we are seeing there an entire people being stripped of human dignity. And she also said that this has really bad implications for the future, not just for the Israelis and Palestinians, but for all of those of us around the world, many millions who could be affected by war.
In Gaza this morning, food distribution is on hold after several days of...
Israel's like, oh, you won't let us kill people in the process of aid distribution? Well, I guess we got to go back to the drawing board. No aid for anybody. Okay? Once again, all of this completely manufactured crisis that Israel is designing could change if they just let the fucking aid freely go into the Strip, the aid that is waiting at Israeli checkpoints right now. There is already a distribution mechanism. Israel is not allowing said distribution mechanism into the Strip. Israel wants to control the aid distribution and use it and weaponize it. Israel wants to weaponize the aid distribution to the starving population that it itself starved for months at this point, to continue to ethnically cleanse the population, to continue to fucking kill people that are in the process of trying to receive aid. None of this is a war. This is a Holocaust.
violence. Dozens have been killed, allegedly by Israeli forces, while trying to pick up food as a designated checkpoint. The cutoff follows another round of deadly airstrikes in Gaza. Imtiaz Tayeb reports.
A CBS News team was there as Palestinians rushed to rescue the survivors of an Israeli strike on a destroyed bank in Gaza City where families had been sheltering. At least 7 people were killed and dozens injured, according to first responders. The attack followed an announcement by the U.S. and Israel-backed Gaza Humanitarian Foundation's decision to halt operations following 3 consecutive days of mass shootings.
I can't believe it. I'm seeing Eye on Palestine Instagram account posts on CBS Mornings. Wow. What the fuck is going on? What an incredible change. Where was this since October 8? Okay. This is eyewitness phone camera footage that mainstream media has denied using. Okay. They're Hasanabi posting. What? Oh, guys, is this real? Star Wars subreddit politics is banned. Andor subreddit. Tie me to a missile and fire it at Tel Aviv. I am ready. Yeah, we're going to talk about the Andor subreddit in a second. Andor subreddit is getting interesting, and I think that it's got 17.5 K upvotes. They're going to fucking ban this subreddit, probably.
Near its southern aid distribution hub in order to, quote, enhance security measures. GHF, which is staffed with heavily armed American private security contractors, did not exist up until a few months ago. But one of its affiliates, Safe Reach Solutions, which employs several of the contractors, has a publicly available address in Israel. We went to the central Tel Aviv building to see if we could talk to someone from the...
This is crazy. They're actually doing journalism. Are my eyes deceiving me? Am I seeing CBS Mornings do actual journalism? Actual investigative reporting? What the fuck is going on? Doing actual investigative reporting on Israel? The most moral nation? How is this possible? What the fuck is happening? They do news now? They're doing reporting. This is an incredible shift in attitude, not just in tone and demeanor. This is like they're actually doing real work for once. This is unheard of. This is unimaginable. What a market shift.
Wyoming registered company about their operations in Gaza.
I'm just confused because, like, why aren't they just listening to what Itamar Ben-Gvir has to say and then acting like that is the truth? Because that's a little surprising. They're starting to cover they're starting to cover the truth like they got a fucking Nuremberg trial coming up or something. You know what I mean? It's interesting. It's interesting. I don't care if it's ass covering, chat. I don't care because, look, I'm being cold, calculated, and pragmatic. Okay? Yes, it's far too late. Yes, it's far too little. Okay? But I am not going to sit here and constantly fucking complain about this shit, because the reality of the matter is this is how that pressure continues to build. Okay? This is how that pressure continues to build, because when you show this as opposed to showing my coverage to your fucking grandparents, they are going to be infinitely more responsive to this. Okay? This is complementary to your goals. If you want to change people's minds, having some random dumbass who curses all the time, who wears a t-shirt in his news coverage, is not going to be the most effective communicator to change the minds of your parents and your grandparents that have firm commitments to believing that Israel is the most moral nation on the fucking planet. Having the media, mainstream outlets, say these things that I've been saying for fucking months and actually doing real journalism is good, because it will then create even more pressure. It will cause even more people to take it to the streets. I never would have imagined that this level of actual investigations would ever take place in mainstream media. I believe that you will see more and more people even using the G word. You might even start seeing mainstream media use the G word maybe in like 3 months, 4 months from now, depending on how this issue is trending. The resist libs in my life are posting about Gaza because of Miss Rachel. Yeah. Stimp TM, thank you for the 10 gifted subs. The Pew poll showing Israel unfavorability in U.S. going from 42% in 2022 to 53% in 2025 happened because of people who are late to the game. Anyone who sits and acts holier than thou on this issue just wants to stay at that 42 in perpetuity, I guess. Yes. Some people want to gatekeep access to the truth, and it's very unproductive. That's all I'm saying. It's cute you think this is because the winds are changing and not permitted because job is done and now they need to let liberals clear their conscience. No, there is that as well. This is part of it as well. But ultimately, if you're in the business of advocacy, if you want the rest of the Palestinians to survive, if you want any Palestinians in the Gaza Strip to survive this process, you have to keep fucking pushing. Do you understand? Israel and Western leadership relied on people turning a blind eye to these atrocities. They thought that people would just simply refuse to care. They thought that this would turn into like the Syrian civil war. They thought, oh, it's just like happening over there. Who gives a shit? What they failed to recognize was that our populations understand that we are directly responsible for this. Okay? Because I talked about this yesterday with this journalist. Israel is directly involved with Western affairs because Israel cannot continue existing in the violent ways that it does without unlimited support from the West. And therefore, Israel and its actions are not as avoidable as what happens in Syria, regardless of U.S. intervention and U.S. involvement. You see what I mean? We have more involvement here than even with respect to Russia invading Ukraine. This is precisely the reason why it never actually went away. Even Ukraine and support for Ukraine went away, despite the fact that liberals loved being on the right side for once of any fucking global conflict, even if it ultimately was for the wrong reasons, even if it ultimately was not to save Ukraine at all, but instead to shift our military budgets away from Afghanistan to a new area where now even soldiers don't fucking die. It's fantastic, right? Bro, Hassan, I really can't stop this infinite charity thing. If we let libs come over to our position after cheering for genocide for 20 months, is ideological genocide. These colonizers get to do this with no rhetorical or material opposition. There's no justice in that. Brother, you will never find me casting aside any person that arrives at the correct conclusion, even if it's fucking months late, okay? Months too late, because I understand that in order for change to take place, especially in order for people to recognize that perhaps the previous ways in which people have actually been able to implement change in our supposedly democratic process is not working. You need numbers for that. You need pressure for that. And it doesn't happen overnight, okay? Not everyone is fucking born woke or on the right side of history. It takes a lot for people to get there, okay? So you do have to have allies in this fight. It's a struggle, and it takes a long time to get people on board. I never told you to fucking forgive people. I'm just simply saying, while you can maintain your critical attitude towards those who you have heard have stood in opposition to Palestinian emancipation, you should still welcome them as new allies and try to redirect their attention to more productive ways of protesting. You should get them to re-examine what caused them initially to be on the wrong side in this. Okay? This should be an opportunity for you. This should be an opportunity for you to say, hey, look, there has to be a reason as to why you thought what Israel was doing was correct until recently. Try to engage in a little bit of self-criticism and figure out what that was, so that next time something like this happens, you're not immediately rushing to defend whatever the American State Department position is. Do you understand? And no, this charitability does not extend to the likes of fucking Matt Miller. Come on, dude. I'm talking about average Joes who get duped by the likes of Matt Miller, who get duped by the likes of CBS Mornings.
What we've been told is that, by the woman we've spoken to, is that there's only one person, one family in this building.
She asked us to obscure her identity to protect her privacy.
The woman who lives in this building didn't want to speak to us on camera, but what she did tell us is that there is an apartment in this building that is rented out as an Airbnb, and that a group of Americans, well-dressed Americans as she described them, stayed there for a few nights, but that she hasn't seen them for the past 10 days.
Almost as long as the group has been on the ground in Gaza.
Now, very little is publicly known.
Also, another thing you have to understand is, like, this is still ongoing. This is not the same as like liberals basically saying, after championing the Iraq War and its continuation, turning around and being like, yeah, maybe it wasn't the best idea after it's done. Okay? This is still an ongoing issue, and therefore it's still an ongoing ethnic cleansing campaign, and therefore you need every fucking ally you can get. Do you understand? Many of you are late to the game. This has been an ongoing atrocity for 77 years. Do I ever sit here and tell you how late to the game you were as opposed to someone like myself? No. A lot of you learned about this process recently, as opposed to Palestinians who have been advocating for their own emancipation for a very long time, or even someone like myself who has been a advocate for Palestinian emancipation for the past 10 fucking years, 12 years at this point. Do I sit here and tell you, haha, like in the aftermath of October 7, did I sit here and tell you, oh, look at that, you finally arrived at the correct conclusion? No, I don't. So you should also carry yourself in a similar way. Because it's not about being right. It's not about gatekeeping progress. It's not about fucking gatekeeping process. It's about literally bringing as many people as you possibly can to your cause, with the hopes that eventually you can change the tide. You can make it so that there is so much pressure to support Israel that even the American government has to recalculate their priorities. I never do that. Anyway, let's talk about Hasanabi Vindication Month. You do sometimes do that. Okay, well, I'm not doing it on this because this is still an ongoing issue. Okay? And by the way, whenever I talk about vindication, I also still package that with, it's vindication for all of us, usually, not just myself, but I also still package that with, now understand how you arrived at that position initially. Understand why you stood in opposition to what I was saying initially. Try to figure out where you were getting your information from and reconsider whether or not those people have biases that were hidden to you. I was a lib pro-Israel guy because I didn't know anything, even thought, of course, they should defend themselves. Only after my girlfriend introduced me to you a few months ago, I finally realized what was really going on and learned about the Middle East. Yeah, there are always new people coming in here. The goal is not to fucking shut off people from learning. My goal is to explain the situation to people no matter where they're at. Don't attack allies.
About the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation and Safe Reach Solutions. But a CBS News analysis has found that both companies are registered in Delaware and Wyoming, respectively. Now, we asked a representative of GHF about the source of their funding, but he would not say. Nate.
MTS Tayyab in Tel Aviv, thank you.